I looked up and saw her face again. Who was this strange woman I saw every time I closed my eyes? I looked out the window as stars streaked by and put my hand on the door sill glass. It felt cold. For a few moments, I wondered how it would feel if it shattered and all of us were sucked out into the iciness of space. It made me shiver. What were we doing out here? We didn't belong here any more than we belonged living at the bottom of oceans and lakes. But here we were. I often wondered how it felt to live in one place, on one planet. Our planet had been squandered and destroyed by the ones in charge. The atmosphere had been ruined. Global warming had dried up many of the oceans and destroyed much of the vegetation, which only made things worse. Plants and animals began to die off. Water temperatures rose. Our ancestors didn't do anything about it except provide electric cars and solar panels for the top 15% of the people, as people with average incomes watched, as if that helped. They had a fantasy in the back of their heads. The 15% anyway, they thought that they would wisp us off of the earth to other planets that we would settle onto, like on Star Trek movies. They figured the others were just stupid and would be doomed. They thought that all of the planets out there were available and they would be lords, even gods, if they were the ones in control of whole planets of people. Little did they know that there were larger powers out there and that even the empty planets were owned. The galaxy was separated into sectors owned by various groups of extraterrestrials, and we weren't part of any one of them. So we began to roam through space from one planet to the next like vagabonds, staying until we were discovered or until the group needed to use their planet again. We had been cursed by the stupidity of our own ancestors and were jumping again to yet another planet. I didn't even know where I was going this time and didn't really care. It felt good to have a little downtime. On the transport ship, we had very light duties. The crew did most of the work. We were just being transported. We were the settlers, the ones who would begin to terraform the planet before the arrival of the civilians. We were the first to land, even before the military. We were totally unarmed, at the mercy of everyone, knowing that if we arrived armed, or the military arrived first, we would probably be cut down and our ragged little ships totally obliterated. We were seen as pitiful creatures, but no one opened their doors to us because of the history of violence and stupidity that followed us. That was another gift of our vapid ancestors. I leaned back and closed my eyes. There she was again, the woman with platinum hair, who was very pale. She had a blue jewel set in the center of her head and it looked like a third eye. It flashed every so often. I began to drift off as she was talking. Wake up, you sleepyhead. I opened my eyes quickly. Kyle was sitting across from me drinking a cup of coffee. He was tall and dark with a big afro and a bright smile. He was part of the crew, a genius when it came to keeping the engines on these garbage piles of a ship running. He laughed. Jesus, man, don't you get any sleep at night? Yeah, I said. I yawned and stretched. I don't know what's going on. I just passed out. I saw that woman again. Really? You must have a thing for that woman. Or maybe she has a thing for you. He winked and laughed. I was speechless. He sipped his coffee. Yep, he continued. You know some of the races out here are telepathic and can communicate with us, don't you? I shook my head. Really, he said. Don't you terraformers get the latest news? We're in a sector full of humanoid telepaths, hoping, just hoping, they'll let us stay here. So don't be a wise ass with that woman because she's probably real. I'm a bit skeptical, but I'll take you at your word, I said. Yeah, you're always skeptical. What did she say? I don't know. I can't hear it or I just fall asleep wherever I am, just like that. I snapped my fingers. I think you should go see security. Really? So they can protect me from a fantasy? Ha! A pretty good looking fantasy at that. I'm serious. I'll arrange for it. They have counselors, you know. He gave me the most serious look I had seen on his face for the last 3 days. So you think it's that serious, Kyle? Yeah, John, I do. What did I just say, John? They're telepaths. They're trying to communicate with you. Well, I couldn't connect the two because I didn't believe you. You know I never believe anything you say. Or at least I think you have it all mixed up. He flattened his lips. Ha ha, yeah, pretty funny. You need to listen to me. I've been around. I've really been around, arching his brows. What do you mean, you know? I don't know. You're not. He tilted his head slightly. No, I'm not permitted to discuss such issues. He drank down the bottom of his coffee. That's some good stuff. I'll set up the appointment. He stood up. The way you handle this could mean finding a home or not. Remember that. I won't give it a second thought. Sure, he said with a grin. I know you will. His face became serious again. Don't worry. It will be all right. Thanks for the vote of confidence, I said. What are friends for? He turned and headed out of the lounge. I looked out the window again and noticed how much time I spent lounging. I deserved it. Once we hit the next planet, I would be going almost 24/7. Why shouldn't I have been lazy when I had time off? I looked out the window again. It seemed so vast and so cold. Why had our ancestors destroyed our hopes and dreams because of their greed and their laziness? What is your name? The doctor asked, leafing through her notes. She looked up expectantly. John, I said. That is it? What's your last name? I don't have one of them anymore. Oh, you're one of those rebels or terrorists. Not because I don't have a last name. I have a last name. She pointed to her badge. What's that say? Dr. Brenda Wentworth. Everyone else has a last name. Why don't you have a last name, Mr. Blake? I was silent. Let's not be resistant, Mr. Blake, shall we? You were invited here. I could write up an order for you to be sent here and kept here. You wouldn't. You don't think so? You want to see me do it? You're bluffing. She reached over to the desk and pushed a small button. Two men came rushing in uniforms with pistols on their hips. She looked at me. Okay, doctor. Good. I thought you would come to your senses. She looked at the men. We won't be needing you for now, but I would appreciate it if you stay just outside the door. One gave a nod and they headed back out. Show of force, eh? Pretty hostile. You haven't seen hostile yet. You start cooperating, or haven't you realized who we are yet? Are you that dumb? No, I haven't. You can't say you're intelligence. They were banned decades ago. She grinned. Weren't they? Come on, John. We know all about you. What have you been experiencing? I've seen a woman in my head, tall, blonde, with a blue jewel right in the center of her forehead. But every time she tried to speak, I just fall asleep. Good. We're making progress. Progress? What kind of progress? We've been watching you and people like you for more than a century, waiting for you to develop your telepathic powers. You and a few more have alien DNA in your blood cells, making you not fully human. I assure you I'm fully human. Your DNA says different. We've been giving you a nutrient that will help you manifest your telepathic networks for quite some time, in the water, so to speak. You're the third generation receiving the treatment, and it seems to be paying off. She flipped through my files a few more times. She pulled out a photo of me as a child of 4 or 5 and handed it to me. This was our first contact with you. We've been treating you ever since. Chemical experiments, psychological manipulation, a lot of experimentation and experiential treatments to bring you where you are right now. She reached out, and I gave her the picture. You just might end up saving the human race, John. That's good to hear, because it seems like someone needs to. Brenda, when will you scientists stop doing illegal experiments and operations on citizens? You are not a citizen. Your parents signed you over to us to help you cope with being a child who is different from others, and we helped. When you got of age, you signed on to come out here in space. You consented to things we're doing for the betterment and survival of the human race. We're well within our rights as a species and government. So suck it up. Keep drinking the water. She grinned. She thought herself clever. I didn't. Break. Kyle was sitting there having lunch when I walked in. He seemed quite happy. Marvin was spouting out some old dry stories, the kind where he always ended up being the hero. He was such a good liar that we pretended to believe him and went along with him. He was like a living vid screen, gifted to say the least. I pulled up a seat and sat there looking at Kyle. He turned to me. What kind of monster did you send me to? I asked. What do you mean? That monster of a doctor you sent me to. She was horrible. What's that Wentworth woman? Marvin asked. She is just horrible. I always hear complaints about her because of her experiments. It's said they're doing bio experiments on unsuspecting people, real Nazi stuff over generations. That's what she told me herself. She bragged about it. Keep it down, Kyle said. Hide it, you mean? No, Kyle said. You may whip up some type of resistance, then we'll all be sorry. He leaned closer. Don't you know who's really in charge here? The Cabal. Oh, Jesus, the Cabal again, I said. They seem to be everywhere. Kyle just looked at me and tilted his head slightly. Come on, I said. He was silent. Humans and extraterrestrials. A big family spanning across the galaxies in charge of how we live, what we do, what we hear, and what we're allowed to understand. Don't you get it, John? When will you learn that you aren't free? None of us are. Holy shit, what are you saying? Marvin commented. We're fucked and we can't do anything about it, he answered. Our only hope is to contact those telepaths and others who are not part of the system so we can get free. That's what I'm talking about. He grinned and then looked more serious. That is why it's so important. Oh, just kidding, he suddenly said, sitting back in his chair. You guys are crazy. He pushed the seat back from the table. I have to get to work. You two think about it and what you're saying. You don't want to cause harm or be harmed, do you? He grinned and then quickly looked serious. If you repeat what I said and you're wrong, people will just think you're crazy. If you're right, you'll disappear. Welcome to the agency. He winked. I watched as he walked away. I didn't know how to respond to any of that. Talk about sending a double message. What the fuck was he talking about? Marvin asked, voicing my exact thoughts. I have no idea. No idea at all. I think he's a spook. So is that doctor. You better be quiet then, man. Very quiet. Because now they're a rogue agency. They aren't supposed to exist. Chapter 2. You gotta cool out, Brenda. You have people talking, Kyle said. She glowered. Don't kill the messenger. Who's talking, Kyle? A lot of people like John and others who have come to visit you. You can't be telling them you're working for. He lowered his voice. You know, you're supposed to be a doctor and they're supposed to be dead. If they find out we're still around, we'll end up stranded on some asteroid or something. We're sanctioned. We're not rogue. Yeah, but they aren't supposed to know about it. Who do you think will get it in the rear end? They start asking about us, the people sanctioning us in secret or us. She thought for a moment. She picked up her beer bottle and took a swig. I can see what you mean. I'll cool it down a little. That's good. By the way, I told John everything. Ooh, what do you mean everything? The whole truth. That I pretended like I was lying and joking, but he knew I wasn't. Now he knows, and knows that he will be erased if he ever talks about it. Marvin was there too, so now he knows. And what will happen to him too. I hope that will shut them up for a while. Big risk, Kyle. I know, but we just can't start killing people. I think I can recruit them. Do you? It would be helpful to have a terraformer who gets to travel around the galaxy to gather information for us, if only that. And this one seems to be becoming telepathic. I loaded up his coffee with X Factor, so next time I think he can tolerate the message. But who knows what she would tell him. I hope all of your scheming works. She took another sip of her drink. Sometimes I don't know how you talked me into this madness. She lowered her voice. You know we'll never get out from under their power. You've been in charge for only a few years. They've been in charge for probably millions of years. They've seen it all. True, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. A cavalier attitude, but we're playing with our lives. Let's just hope your friends have enough sense to shut up. I think they will. I know them very well. By the way, what did you tell him? He was really shaken. The truth. The whole truth. Except I didn't tell him I was joking. Why the hell did you do that? I thought it was time. Let's stop bullshitting and get some people on board who will help us. I'm tired of trying to trick people into doing what we need. I figure he helps, or he winds up in a disposal dump somewhere. You're supposed to be a doctor, but you're as ruthless as hell. That wouldn't make me such a good psychiatrist. I'm ruthless as hell. Now let's see what happens. I gotta go, Kyle said. But before I go, I have to tell you something. I don't know how to soften it, so I'll just say it. You've been acting like a bitch and everybody hates you and says you're a monster. What? Your reputation around the ship is that you're horrible. Please stop or we'll have to hire a new psychiatrist. Oh, now you're gonna fire me? No, you're going to act like a professional instead of a bitch. He smiled. Good day, Brenda. He turned and walked out of the room. Brenda sat there, eyes narrowed and lips pursed, and then took a drink. The beer was still cold. It had a touch of bitterness, just the way she liked it. Brenda glared at me when I walked into the room. I don't know why I was called back again. It had been a few days since I had first visited. She motioned to the chair across from her. Her hair was long and straight, tucked into a tight bun on the back of her head. She had a pencil tucked behind her ear, partially hidden by the long blonde hair. She was wearing a white lab coat covering a black dress with ugly, thick white shoes like nurses' shoes, with ugly stockings to match. I took a seat. I'm surprised to see you again, John, after you snitched on me. She picked up a nearby legal pad and took the pencil from behind her ear. She looked at me waiting. What do you mean snitched on you? That's not a very professional term, is it? I mean that you've been talking about things you should not be mentioning. She put the pencil eraser in her mouth for a moment and paused before speaking again. The things that I told you are private because it's dangerous for anyone to know them. Don't you get it? You mean that the things that Kyle was talking about? I don't believe anything he says. Good answer. Now are you in or out? In or out of what you know? Does Kyle know you're talking to me about this? Kyle thinks he's my boss. He thinks he knows about the agency, but has no idea how old it is or how widespread it is. Suddenly, my mind was filled with images of stars and galaxies, different faces of different beings. The amount of stars and planets seemed limitless. I didn't pass out this time. I just sat back and blinked. That wasn't the woman who's trying to contact you. That was me. I'm not human. Kyle doesn't know that, but you do. Our cousins out here are trying to contact us. They want to warn us about the dangers in this system. Whose side are you on? They're trying to contact you because we, the ones who've been living among you, have lost our ability to receive. We can only send. One of the reasons we were planted on your planet was to just send information. We are the watchers. They thought that if we could receive information, it might make you more aware of us. So you are the instrument who will receive the information and pass it on to us. Don't I have a choice? No, you will receive it. You can have a choice in what you do with it, but you will receive it. And you will not be talking to Kyle or Marvin or any of your friends about this. Kyle actually thinks we're part of an old defunct intelligence agency from Earth. We were implants put in the agency to monitor the agency. Double agents, I stated. Not necessarily. We were always allies and always will be as long as you don't bring your barbaric ways out here in space. We don't want your culture or your way of life. Very few do. Well, there's nothing I can do about it. Yes, there is. You can be a watcher who's able to receive and send. That's what you'll do. You wouldn't have been able to receive the message I sent you the first time you were here. You should have no problem getting the message from the woman you're talking about. She looked at the pad and wrote something. She looked up. So have you made your mind up? Join us? Help humans? Don't join us? She snapped her finger. Poof. Poof. What does that mean? You'll kill me? No, the aneurysm will kill you, the one I'm noting that may occur because of the results of some of the scans we did a few days ago. And I wouldn't be the one doing it. The ones who are able to contact you now would. Someone would. Maybe some of the hostiles who are able to send messages too. They realize that you, a human, can pick up telepathic messages, they will do away with you. The secret of the Cabal, especially on Earth, was the power of their minds. The telepathic abilities that many of the high bloods developed kept them a step ahead of everybody. You think they would let you have those skills? You would be a potential enemy. And if word ever got out that you were an enemy, they would take care of you. So are you in or out? I need time to think about it. She looked at her watch. I will give you 10 seconds. That's not enough time. That's not fair. You wasted 5. I'd hate to have to leak your experience, but I would. Okay, I'm in. Good thought. I thought you would come around. Welcome to the squad, and I warn you, if you tell anyone, you will be endangering their lives along with your own. I just frowned. It's so good to have someone I can share this information with on board. I've had to hide it so long, even from Kyle, like you will. Now I can stop acting obnoxious with you anyway. That was my method of keeping people at distance. Oh, you're saying you just acted that way, but are really this sweet, nice, intelligent woman. Am I getting that right? You really did a good job. Of course I'm saying that, and thank you. I try to do everything well. I knew you could see through it, though. She started smiling. I could feel it in my head and wondered what I had just signed into. And this is the end of the story. Namaste, folks.